Chapter 81 The Ceremony of the Evil God, the Source of Tragedy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. About 6 months back, Soup Country, 2 figures, one big, one small, bamboo hats shading their faces, ambled down a mountain path that seemed to stretch on forever. They'd crossed the snow-covered Iron Country Bridge, they'd passed through Tanyan's bustling capital, filled with the blare of flutes and the thump of drums. They traversed a sea of green forest, the breeze making the trees dance. Despite the fatigue from the long trek home, their eyes shone with hope. The smaller figure, Bamboo, hat bobbing, hurried ahead, stopping in front of the larger man. "Master Hayato, almost there?" Hidan asked, grinning. "Almost," Hayato, a sturdy man in his prime, replied, tilting his head back slightly. "Just ahead. Master's hometown." His eyes softened, a tender, nostalgic look washing over his face as he gazed at the village in the distance, a smile playing on his lips. Hayato then shook his head, bumping Hidan's forehead. He looked at the disheveled kid, face smudged with dirt, clothes torn to shreds, and sighed. "You're a real piece of work, you know that. Chasing chickens, bothering dogs, even picking fights with bandits in the woods. And you can't even walk on water. Honestly, what am I gonna do with you? You're all over the place." Hidan scratched the back of his head, chuckling. "But you're here, Master Hayato. You're a jonin from Yunin village. Super strong." Hayato sighed, a smile tugging at his lips despite himself. "When we get to the village, I'll have your wife sew you up a new outfit. Try to stay out of trouble. And Ryoko's been bugging me, wants to play with her big brother. Come on, show some backbone, you goof." Hidan grinned, pounding his chest. "You bet. I'm gonna be Tang Ying's man someday." Hayato almost corrected him, reminding him that only the 5 great nations used the title Kage, a reflection of power and national strength, but he swallowed the words, not wanting to burst his bubble. He simply smiled and said, "Really? Then, starting tomorrow, you're getting a crash course in water walking." Hidan's face fell, he gave a sheepish grin, spun around, and took off towards the village like a shot, but then, boom. "Yakura, give it up. Sorry, but for justice's sake, I can't die here." "Water style, giant bursting water wave." A youthful voice cried out. Suddenly, a tidal wave erupted, reaching 10 meters high, a raging beast tearing through the landscape. Against such power, mortals were nothing more than ants. Hidan's grin vanished, his sprint faltered, becoming a stumble. Hayato grabbed his shoulders just in time, preventing him from falling. The sky turned dark, the wind howled, and the wave crashed down, swallowing the village whole. Then, bolts of blue lightning ripped through the sky, the earth cracking and splitting. The little village, never large to begin with, vanished as if it were a toy boat in a storm. Not a sound, not a trace. Hidan went silent, his mind blank. Hayato, standing behind him, stared blankly for a moment, his eyes wide with horror. Finally, Hidan turned, his face pale, his expression dazed, his teeth chattering. His eyes were wide and unfocused as he stammered, Master. Master. What was that? Was that a great ninja?" Hayato snapped back to reality. He looked at the hellish scene before them, at the ninjas battling on the water, at the Kirigakure headbands bearing the 3 water swirls, and finally, he saw the source of their destruction, the leader of Kirigakure's Jounin squad, Gotakabana Yakura, a man worthy of being called a Kage. Hayato tried to speak, but his mouth was dry, a hollow ache in his chest. Seeing this man, any angry words caught in his throat. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his eyes burned with twisted anger, but he couldn't even meet the other's eyes. He wanted to laugh but couldn't, he wanted to cry but knew that he had to stay calm. Rage was eating him alive, robbing him of breath. Hidan then pointed towards what was once the village, and the dozens of corpses floating among the debris. His expression was vacant, the skin around his eyes stretched tight. He stared at Hayato, asking in a hollow voice. "Sensei, why didn't you save them? You told me. You're the strongest ninja in Yunin village. With your skills, Sensei, couldn't you have done something? Couldn't you defeat those ninja who were killing innocent people? Could you have killed them, covered their tracks, and gotten away?" Hidan's voice cracked, tears welling in his eyes. Why didn't you kill them? Hidan's words struck Hayato like a blow. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. Finally, he risked a last look at Yakura, as the youth danced on the waves, wielding his power, eyes shining with a pure heart. Yes. Why didn't I kill them? Hayato's eyes dropped to the ninja pouch at his waist, focusing on a dark scroll tucked inside. It was a document he'd stumbled upon while looting a noble's tomb in the land of Soup, a collection of forbidden techniques. Ritual of the Evil God. The techniques were powerful, but the rituals were gruesome and horrifying. This was something that should have been destroyed long ago. Hayato took a deep breath, then turned and ran, gritting his teeth. Hidan, those people are nothing to us. I told you, mind your own business. Half a month later, the third great ninja war spilled over into the land of Soup. Hidan village was charged with protecting the land and properties of the local nobles. The commoners of Soup country were abandoned and left to fend for themselves. Hidan village, caught in the crossfire, suffered heavy losses. Every day brought news of someone missing or deserting. The conflict between the peace faction and the war hawks within the village grew more intense. Disappointed by the weakness of Hidan village, Hidan left. That same day, a group of Kumogakure ninja stormed the village, severely wounding Hayato and other Yunin jonin, and forcing Yunin to pledge allegiance to Kumogakure. The departure of his student, the pressure of the war, the pain of loss. It was a heavy blanket suffocating him. Every night, he woke up gasping for air, reliving that horrible day. That day, Hidan had pointed to the corpses floating on the water, and to the young ninja who had caused it all. Why didn't you kill them? Finally, on this night, a pair of bloodshot lavender eyes snapped open. Hayato unrolled the scroll that he had studied so many times. His grin grew wider, twisted and unhinged. He formed a seal with his hands, slashed his palms, and pressed his bloody hands onto the scroll. Kill. Kill. Ha 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 ha. Kill them all. Ninjas, daimyo, nobles, commoners, everyone's born to suffer. Might as well put it all on the scale. Who hurts more? Who hurts more? Who hurts more? The wind howled, rattling the paper windows and doors. Hayato clenched his teeth, a destructive madness burning in his eyes. He snarled, unleashing a roar of pure hatred. Damn it all! I will curse this world. I will make a blood sacrifice and kill everyone in the world. Chapter 82. The Death of Curse is based on blood. Hidan's awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 82, Blood Spell Death. Ci awakens. Hidan is enraged. In the underground square, Togo Hayato stood by the blood pool, watching the two figures lash to crosses with cold indifference. The Uninja squad leader, also the evil god cult's bishop, paused, then formed a hand seal, a massive triangle in a circle. Ritual base lit up as the seal completed. The ground trembled, and the blood pool started to churn, the liquid like red wine swirling in a glass, waves lapping at the edge. Hidan glanced around at the surrounding crosses, a silent scream frozen on each person's face, as if their lives were cut short at the peak of agony. Even his new brother, Uchiha Ci, seemed resigned, closing his eyes and awaiting death. Panic flared. Hidan raised his trembling hand, a nail having pierced a gaping hole clean through. He desperately tried to wrench the iron nail from the other hand. Gotta hold on, gotta push, gotta pull, but his shaking fingertips kept slipping off the nail. He tried again and again, his palms a bloody mess, blood gurgling onto the ground, but he couldn't get a grip. Suddenly, Togo Hayato looked up at Hidan, his gaze chilling, and asked, "Doesn't it hurt?" Hidan's nostrils flared, veins bulging on his forehead, and he roared, "Duh, of course it freaking hurts." Not enough, Togo Hayato sneered. You must see this pain as a gift, a pleasure. Only then will you earn the evil god's unending favor. Only then can you become the son of God. Son of God, my ass. Only a sicko enjoys this crap. You bastard. Hidan cursed, his trembling hand jabbing wildly. You better let me go right now. That Sharingan freak next to me is a real powerhouse. You just wait till he opens those eyes. He'll slice you in half with a 40-meter sword. Togo Hayato frowned, sizing up Uchiha Ci, sensing something amiss. He lowered his voice. You're relying on a leaf ninja. Where is your pride as a rain ninja? Pride? Hidan cackled, jutting his chin. This country, this village, these guys with the forehead protectors, when did they ever have pride? Togo Hayato's brow furrowed deeper. He'd entrusted the ritual of the evil god to this disciple, after reading the incantations. Shouldn't this kid know that he can only achieve his goals by believing in and making sacrifices to the evil god? Before the bishop could react, Hidan sneered, glaring at him. Who do you think you are, telling me what to do? He paused, his voice heavy. I'm done believing in your evil god bull. Hidan looked around at the thousands of crosses, at the tortured figures, and felt a cold dread creep in. He raised his hand, pointing at the crosses. The power gained this way, no matter how great, what's the difference between us and all the other big-shot ninjas? I'm going to save the land of rain my way. With a final, defiant roar, Hidan gritted his teeth, leaned forward, and ripped his hand free of the iron nail. His bloody palm dripped, flesh torn, the pain searing, thump, kneeling in the pool of blood, he hissed in agony, squirming, crawling towards the cross where Uchiha Ci hung, determination burning in his eyes. Astonishment flickered across Togo Hayato's face. Could one Uchiha really have had such a profound effect on Hidan in a single day? Just yesterday, under his carefully laid plans, his disciple was the most loyal believer of the evil god. What in the hell is going on here? Did this Uchiha slip something into Hidan's drink? Save the land of rain. He. Togo Hayato took a deep breath, his sneer deepening, narrowing his eyes. Have you even considered that the enemies you'll face are the 5 great nations, the strongest powers in the entire ninja world? In times of peace, the land of rain can only exist as a buffer. When war breaks out, this land will be shattered in an instant. You seriously think this brat can change any of that? Shut up. How could I possibly know the answer? Hidan roared, clenching his fists, his forehead throbbing. All I know is, if this country can't survive without groveling, then we'll grovel to the person who can give us the answer. He pointed at Uchiha Ci behind him. This guy's got the crazy idea of overthrowing the 5 nations and uniting the ninja world. If that can change the future of the land of rain, then I'm betting on him. I'm betting everything I've got. That's a hell of a lot more powerful than your evil god cult. With that, Hidan pulled himself up the cross, staggering. He stood before Uchiha Ci, his gaze resolute. Until he opens his eyes, it's my job to protect him. Togo Hayato snorted. Good speech, but you've made the wrong choice. He looked past Hidan at Uchiha Ci, who remained still, his eyes shut. He shook his head, and let the words fly. That kid is falling apart. He can't be your strength, and he can't fulfill that joke of a promise. Togo Hayato formed the final seal, clapping his hands on the ground. The ritual circle blazed, the blood in the pool rose up, coating Hidan's body. Dark lines stained his face, then white stripes like skulls began to crawl across his skin, turning him into the black and white skull tattoo he'll have later in Akatsuki as the 3. Togo Hayato strode into the pool, drew a dark spear from his sleeve, and advanced on Hidan with a ferocious grin. Let's do this, Hidan. Hidan looked up, gritting his teeth, watching the hooded figure approach with mounting dread. Togo Hayato stared at the white stripes on Hidan's body, exultant. His disciple truly possesses the physique. The immortal body of the evil god cult only enhances recovery. If you chop off the head or dismember the body, it's still death. But combined with the cult's other secret, death spell, blood ritual, a terrifying killing power can be created. With this ability, as long as you obtain someone's blood, even a Kage can be killed. This ability could be used to intimidate the leaders of the major nations in the ninja world and bring peace to the land of rain. However, Togo Hayato had bigger plans. He's going to create a monster. He's going to mold a monster that will resolutely execute the tenets of the evil god cult and kill every living thing in the ninja world. just to curse this world, to bury everyone in this world with him. For all the pain he's suffered, but the immortality and the blood ritual are not guaranteed to coexist in one person. Those who possess the immortal body may not necessarily have the qualifications to use spells and death spells, and vice versa. Moreover, the cost of sacrificing to the evil god is enormous, and it would be difficult to organize a second one soon. So he has been carefully selecting people who have both qualifications, and his disciple, Hidan, has exactly this qualification. At this moment, Togo Hayato had completely lost it. He will not hesitate to send his closest disciples to the altar, regardless of who they are, just to please the evil god and gain power. So, all that's left to do is, Togo Hayato reached Hidan and stared down at him, his face a mask of coldness. Then, he plunged the pitch-black spear into the ground at Hidan's feet and grinned. "Come on, let's start the ceremony." Togo Hayato's cold eyes fell on Uchiha Ci, and he asked, his voice dripping with malice, "Hidan, do you want to kill your friend first, or do you want to kill your fellow rain ninja? The choice is yours. Either way, they're going to die by your hand." "Are you kidding me?" Hidan's face twisted. He stepped in front of Togo Hayato, his body trembling, but defiant. "I won't let you hurt him." "Wrong," Togo Hayato sneered. "I'm not hurting him." "You are." He clasped his hands together, drawing 10 chakra threads from his fingertips, and plunged them into Hidan's body. Against a Jonin, Hidan was helpless. He could only watch the threads sink into his limbs. Then, to his horror, Hidan discovered he couldn't control his own body. Togo Hayato watched impassively, forcing Hidan to turn, pick up the spear, and use its tip to slice Uchiha Ci's arm, drawing a pool of blood. Hidan's hand took the blood from the spear into his mouth. Then, a circle of red light flared in the spell formation. Death spell, blood ritual activated, Hidan recognized it instantly, the technique used by the leader of the evil god cult back in the village when Uchiha Ci fought against those cult members. Hurting himself was equivalent to hurting Uchiha Ci. The horrific consequences flooded his mind. Hidan turned his head, his eyes wide with terror, and screamed, "Wait! What are you doing? Let go! Let me go!" He struggled, but his hand, now forced, trembled, raising the spear, aimed at his own gut. Togo Hayato's smile twisted into something monstrous, his face flushed. "Don't worry, Hidan. I've got experience with this. This kid won't die before your pain is enough to please the evil god and grant you true immortality. Of course, if he does die, bad luck, he. Chapter 83 Zero Tail is Born, Dark Chakra. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the massive underground cavern, some creep was trying to force himself on a young woman with a spear, ready to do some serious damage. What was Uchiha doing? Watching the show. Well, not exactly watching. More like listening, since his eyes were closed. A minute earlier, hanging on that cross thanks to Togo Hayato, he'd been chatting with Hidan while squeezing every last drop of chakra from his own dried-up husk. This wasn't enough for any awesome ninjutsu, or even to whip out some crazy sword like Hidan suggested. Forget opening the Sharingan, but it was enough for a basic escape trick. The standard ninja rope escape. Super practical. While jawing with Hidan, he'd quietly used it to loosen the rope on his left leg. Then, when the cult leader went to the side to do some hand signs and chant, Uchiha kicked the scroll hidden in his right leg. The scroll flew up, and Uchiha, gritting his teeth against the pain, craned his neck and snagged it with his teeth, biting through the knot. Scroll deployed. He bit his tongue, letting blood trickle onto the scroll. When the writing started to glow, Uchiha spit it out and let it drop into the blood pool. Hidan saw the whole thing, but, with a look from Uchiha, he kept his mouth shut, just kept the trash talk flowing to distract the bishop. Then, Uchiha closed his eyes and tried to connect with the scroll Shinon gave him. The one that sealed the Zero Tail. In Uchiha's mind, this scroll was supposed to unleash dark, evil chakra. Opening it would trigger a tsunami of dark power from the depths of his soul, instant explosive power. Super Saiyan mode. Unlimited physical transformation. Healing. Endless chakra. He'd be like Lu Mingfei possessed by some god of war, beating down by Wang, Uchiha would be shouting, "Bring it on!" Unleashing superpowered dark ninja techniques to obliterate the cult leader with one punch. A one-man wrecking crew tearing through the cult of evil, kicking ass and taking names. Then, Hidan, his biggest fan, would be all starry-eyed. If he still had chakra to spare, he might even jump thousands of feet to find Ghost Lantern Manu, the guy who slashed him, and go another round. A real brawl. But, of course, there was a but. What happened next caught Uchiha completely off guard. What crawled out of the scroll wasn't what he expected. It was hard to describe. A small, black-purple meatball, kinda like a weird zergling. Bloop. The little meatball wiggled out of the blood pool, revealing 2 white eye holes. It squinted, and Uchiha stared back. Uchiha. Awkward silence. The gap between the awesome fantasy and this reality was huge. Uchiha was speechless. He wanted to light up a whole pack of cigarettes, like Tom in the cartoons, and just exhale pure depression. Then he remembered what Shinnong had told him. The old man, looking spaced out, had solemnly pressed the scroll into Uchiha's hand and said, "This is a zero tail. A very scary zero tail." Uchiha never expected Shinnong to be so generous, actually giving him the real deal, not just a one-use power-up, but the actual zero tail. This purple-black meatball looked like a genuine zero tail. It had a long, curled-up purple-black tail and 4 red hairs sticking up on its head, and a serious white mask. It looked energetic. But this was worse than buying a toy Lamborghini. The real zero tail was massive, took over the Kong Ninja Fortress, and could level a truck with its tail. This zero tail. Chirp, the little guy, sensing Uchiha's gaze, eagerly showed off what it could do. It flicked a tiny, finger-sized tail, causing a 3-centimeter splash in the blood pool. Then, it lost its balance and flopped back into the blood. Uchiha went silent again. He'd been ready to go Super Saiyan. Just needed the chakra to unleash the blade mode and fight with everything he had. But instead, he got a baby zero tail. Was he supposed to be a Pokemon trainer now? This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Uchiha glanced at Hidan, who was bravely standing guard. He sighed, then couldn't help but grin. "Dude, it's not that I don't want to save you. Looks like this is fate. I guess I'm the guy who wins the lottery but loses the ticket. Just think of me as a sacrifice. Stab me a few times, send me off. No hard feelings." After that silent farewell, Uchiha closed his eyes for real. He was ready to die. His body was spent, his injuries were severe, and he'd used the escape jutsu to wring out the last bit of chakra. He'd played his last card, and it turned out to be a dud. Baby Zero Tail. He'd sacrificed everything for the greater good, and now. Suddenly, Uchiha felt an itch on the back of his neck. Bloop. The little Zero Tail scratched his head with its tiny tail. Confused, it didn't understand what its master was thinking. So, it climbed up Uchiha's body and nestled into the back of his neck. Then, it reached up with a small, tentacle-like hand and lifted its white mask like a gentleman. It opened its mouth, full of tiny fangs. Snap, star. The next moment, a notification popped up in Uchiha's mind. You have become the zero-tailed, young body, Jinchuriki. You have learned the Dark Chakra Extraction Technique, A, and Dark Awakening, A. Chapter 84. Laughing wildly at the altar, extremely cruel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A jolt, like an electric shock, shot from the base of his neck up his spine. Zero-tail chakra followed the bite, burrowing into Uchiha Ci's body and snaking down his spine. In an instant, it reached his gut, morphing into a pool of pure, dark chakra. Then, bam. It merged with him. Boom. 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 His heart hammered, blood surging through his veins. The amount of chakra from Zero Tail itself wasn't significant, barely enough to match an average genin. It flowed through him, giving his battered body the strength of a flickering candle. A sudden realization dawned on Uchiha Ci as he grasped Zero Tail's purpose. Becoming its Jinchuriki granted him 2 abilities, Dark Chakra Extraction, A, and Dark Awakening. Straightforward enough, Dark Chakra Extraction. It allowed him to gather darkness from those around him, even from his own heart, condensing it into Dark Chakra. The deeper the darkness, the more chakra he could pull. Dark awakening. This involved channeling the extracted chakra into his body, mimicking a Jinchuriki's tailed beast cloak. The catch? Using it unleashed dark chakra but also turned him irrational, arrogant, and laid bare the darkest corners of his soul. Basically, it was a watered-down version of the tailed beast cloak. No armor, no tailed beast chakra transformations, no tailed beast bomb, just a discount power-up for anyone willing to trade in some sanity. Right now, in the hall, before the cross, Hidan raised his black spear, aiming for his abdomen. Slowly lowering it, the evil god cult's bishop, Togo Hayato, grinned, a manic gleam in his eyes. He spread his arms wide, welcoming the pain, a morbid fanaticism burning bright within him. Then, with wild excitement, he chanted. Exactly. Exactly. God loves the world, so he shares his suffering. His eyes were wide, the corners of his mouth practically touching his ears. God said. Every soul born into this world is rooted in ignorance, arrogance, and blindness. From this moment on, we three shall bind our souls, uniting our bodies and minds. Pierce, torture, hate. Destroy others, destroy yourselves. Cast aside earthly prejudices and pride. And embrace the gods. Believe in him. Love him. Hate him. This twisted love will be more unshakable than knowledge, more immutable than respect, and more lasting than disgust. Amidst the fervent chanting, Hidan's hands trembled, muscles twitching at the corners of his mouth. He stared at Uchiha Ci, his eyes wide with horror and dread. Even his fried brain couldn't fathom that Togo Hayato would make him kill the very person he'd risked everything to protect. No. No. Uchiha Ci. Tears streamed down Hidan's face as he howled in despair. Wake up. Please, wake up. I'm going to kill you. As his anguished cry echoed behind him, Togo Hayato's smile grew even more twisted. Hidan's misery was like sweet music to his ears, flooding his brain with dopamine, masking the pain beneath his sickening grin. The spear descended, slicing through fabric, piercing skin, drawing beads of blood. But then, suddenly, Uchiha Ci, still bound to the cross, was engulfed by a wave of chilling evil. His eyes snapped open, revealing scarlet pupils burning with madness. Two black tomos spun wildly as the corners of his mouth curled into a maniacal grin. Then, Uchiha Ci threw back his head and erupted in wild laughter. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Laughter dripping with scorn. He narrowed his eyes, fixed on the evil cult bishop behind Hidan, and spat out a sarcastic laugh. You think you can kill me? A pathetic, insignificant worm like you? You think you're worthy to kill me? Ha 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 ha. Bound to the altar, a lamb for the slaughter, seemingly helpless. Yet he roared with laughter. The sight stunned both Togo Hayato and Hidan. The eager smile on Togo Hayato's face froze, his brow twitched. What the hell? He'd never seen an Uchiha cackling like a loon while being sacrificed. Still, as bishop of the evil god cult, he'd seen his share of desperate and hysterical people. Even if this was a bit much, Togo Hayato quickly regained his composure, his eyes hardening as he prepared to force Hidan to run the kid through. But Uchiha Ci, face twisted with cold fury, beat him to the punch, snapping at Hidan. Hidan, listen to me. Stab him. Hidan blinked in confusion, wondering, what the hell, man? When I jam this spear in, it's gonna hurt like hell. I'm gonna gut you. Still, trusting Uchiha Ci, he grit his teeth, abandoned any resistance to Togo Hayato's control, and thrust the spear forward. Straight into his own stomach. In an instant, 3 bloody holes erupted. Ha, hiss. Hidan gasped for breath, his eyes wide with agony. Uchiha Ci ignored the new wounds on Hidan's body, turning his cold, bloodshot eyes to Togo Hayato. At that moment, a bloody hole ripped open in Togo Hayato's stomach. A sneer crept across Uchiha Ci's face as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Ahem. Ouch. Blood trickled down his chin, staining the blood-soaked altar. the agonizing pain didn't register on Uchiha Ci's face. Instead, he threw back his head and laughed maniacally. Ha 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 ha. That's it, that's it, that's it. That's what you had planned. The laughter escalated, starting with a mocking chuckle, building to a full-blown roar, and finally bordering on hysterical tears. Then, he raised his eyes, fixed Togo Hayato with a sinister grin, and sneered. Beneath these eyes, I see right through you. You piece of trash. A rage born from the depths of his heart, a burning anger at the absurdity of this screwed-up world, surged from Uchiha Ci's soul. It transformed into a raging inferno, a thick, potent surge of dark chakra, fueling a justice that would rewrite this tragedy. Becoming strength. Boom! The chakra exploded, shattering the ropes, tearing out the iron nails, snapping the chains. Togo Hayato was baffled. How did this kid, tied to the altar, suddenly blow up? Where did he get the power? What had he seen? What was he planning? He didn't have a clue, just a sudden, jarring shock that his perfectly laid plans were being ripped apart. That's what he hated most, this sudden chaos that ruined everything. And this variable was what he cursed. He wanted the world to return to the silence of the dead, where no variables could exist. This was what drove him to pore over ancient texts and delve into forbidden sorcery, burning the midnight oil. This was his lifelong ambition. So, Togo Hayato glared ferociously, channeled more chakra, and raised his hand to regain control of Hidan. He was going to force Hidan to stab him in the heart. The pain offered to the evil god wasn't enough. Hidan might die. The ritual might fail, but so what? Sacrifices could be replaced. Rituals could be restarted, but this variable had to be eliminated right now. He would use the death possession blood-controlling curse to stab the kid's heart and kill Uchiha Ci. The evil sex bishop, Togo Hayato, is radiating murderous intent toward you. But Uchiha Ci, locked on him with blood-red eyes, saw the intent in his gaze. He sneered and said sarcastically. I said, under these eyes, I see right through you. You want to show off your ruthlessness? Then bring it on. Uchiha Ci immediately whirled his head and snarled at Hidan. Hidan, kill me. Stab me in the heart. Kill me. Now, right now. Kill me. Chapter 85. This is the real immortality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Uchiha finished speaking, both guys in the room snapped their heads up, shocked. What? What did you just say? Hidan's eyes went wide, staring at Uchiha Ci in disbelief and terror. You want me to kill you? You want me to off myself? Hidan ground his teeth, rage building. Are you kidding me? Uchiha Ci, are you nuts? Even Togo Hayato was stunned. Did he hear right? This kid actually wanted Hidan to stab him through the heart. Right now, that would mean Hidan and him would both die. Yeah, Togo Hayato was itching for Hidan to ice this Uchiha brat with a heart shot. He was even ready to screw up the ritual to eliminate any variables, but he hadn't even opened his mouth or made a move yet. Why was this little Uchiha predicting his plays? And even volunteering to die? What the heck was going on? Was he in that big of a hurry to kick the bucket? Togo Hayato's brain went into overdrive. He couldn't wrap his head around what this Uchiha brat was trying to pull. Shouldn't he be fighting back, trying to make a break for it with Hidan? Togo Hayato was completely baffled, but then, Uchiha Ci looked up at Hidan, a flash of regret in his eyes. It was gone in a heartbeat as he made his choice. Uchiha Ci's voice turned ice cold as he snapped, Hidan, haven't you figured it out yet? The real point of this ritual, the sacrifices, how far this creep is willing to go. He pointed a finger at Togo Hayato. This monster's sacrificed thousands of people. He's a total psycho. But he still hasn't gotten what he wants. And you, Hidan, you're special. You've got the build he's drooling over. This guy snagged you to control you. He wants you to butcher everyone you care about, make your pain unbearable. Then, he'll use your suffering as an offering to his twisted god. turn you into a living weapon to get what he wants. Hidan, you're not stupid, you had to have seen it coming. Hidan stared at Uchiha Ci, his lips trembling, and he dropped to his knees. Then, he let out a desperate cry, fear etched on his face. Yeah, I can see it. But what does that have to do with what you're saying? What's that got to do with any of this? Why? Why do you want me to kill you? Don't you want to wipe out the 5 big countries and unite the ninja world? Hidan hissed, his anger reaching a boiling point. Are you just giving up here? Uchiha shook his head, a heavy look on his face, and sighed sadly. Because I can't stop him, and I can't protect you. I'm out of chakra, and my body's reached its limit. Uchiha lifted his head, his eyes full of torment. But there's still something we can do, and that's put a stop to this evil ritual. If I'm right, if you kill me now and then run yourself through, we'll both be done for. He won't get what he wants. And you won't have to live with the agony of slaughtering everyone you love. Uchiha closed his eyes, pain twisting his features. Hidan, this is the best way out. You. Hidan's head felt like it had been cracked open with a hammer. He stumbled back, staring at Uchiha Ci in shock, his eyes glazed over, and he just stood there, blank. He couldn't believe this was coming from Uchiha, this Uchiha, who always acted so sure of himself, so arrogant, even more than Hidan, was actually admitting defeat and waiting to die. In that moment, the pain of shattered trust, the shock of betrayal, and helpless rage all crashed down on Hidan. He felt cold, like he was buried in ice. At the same time, Uchiha's eyebrows twitched, he gasped, and his limbs tingled as chakra surged. A massive wave of dark chakra erupted from his core. Chirp! That the tiny zero tail inside him squealed with excitement, swinging its tail, and greedily started sucking in the dark emotions pouring out of Hidan's heart. Like a furnace, it pulled in the darkness surrounding them and churned it into dark chakra. Filling Uchiha Ci's depleted body, Uchiha Ci felt the chakra flooding his system and narrowed his eyes. He knew that if he unleashed this power now, he could shatter rocks with his bare hands in an instant. But it wasn't enough, not enough to trigger the forbidden technique, physical transformation. His opponent was a bishop of the evil cult. According to the intel Terumi may had gathered, this guy was probably a top-tier jonin from the hidden cloud village, plus, he'd already performed a gruesome sacrifice with 1,000 victims, and he might have gained the evil god cult special ability. Immortality. A jonin's combat skills combined with this immortal body, would make him nearly impossible to kill, bordering on shadow level. To beat him, Uchiha had to be ready to die, deceive both his enemies and his allies. Risk everything and dance between the blades. One wrong move and it's game over. After hearing Uchiha's speech, Togo Hayato's eyes turned to ice. So, that's what this crippled kid had been planning. He had been so startled that he almost controlled Hidan and stabbed him to death. Kid, that's a neat trick. Togo Hayato changed his tune, sneering as he lifted his hand, chakra threads dancing between his fingers. He glared at Uchiha Ci, his face grim. But you think I'm just going to stand here and watch? Hidan, still kneeling on the ground, suddenly felt his body jerk against his will. He reached out and grabbed his spear, pushed himself up, and then raised it and plunged it down. Thwack! The dark spear ripped through Hidan's thigh. In the next heartbeat, 3 bloody holes appeared at the same time. Arg! Hidan grabbed his thigh, howling in agony, his face a mask of pain. Ugh! Ha! Even Uchiha winced, his right leg buckling, and he collapsed into the pool of blood. Ha 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 ha! A bloody hole had also appeared in his thigh, but Togo Hayato laughed maniacally. The wound began to close, healing at an unnatural speed. See that, Hidan? That's the power of the evil god. That's the immortal body. He waved his hand, pointing at Uchiha Ci, and sneered at Hidan. This loser you believe in, with all his power, is nothing but a puppet. Look at him, what can he even do? He can't even stand up. You'd throw away your faith in Lord Evil God for a guy like that. Togo Hayato's expression was cold as he stalked forward. As he walked, the wounds on his legs and stomach tore open again, gushing blood, but he didn't even flinch. He looked delighted. He grabbed Hidan and dragged him over to Uchiha Ci. Come on, open your eyes and take a good look. Togo Hayato squeezed Hidan's neck, forcing him to look up, his face twisted with humiliation. He stared at Uchiha Ci, sprawled on the ground, gasping for air, his face contorted in agony. This is reality, cold and harsh, powerless reality. Born in this broken country, your only way out is to put your faith in the hidden gods of this land. Exchange pain for the power to cheat death. Togo Hayato leaned close to Hidan's ear and whispered, now, you still have a chance to let go of your illusions. Work with me, and we can finish this ritual. He threw Hidan to the ground, yanked the spear out of his leg, and tossed it into his hand. Come on, make your choice. Hidan stared blankly at the black spear in his hand, then up at Uchiha Ci, who was collapsed on the ground, struggling to breathe. The pain in his body was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. He clutched his head in his trembling hands, his whole body shaking, his mind screaming. The pale lines on his body twisted and surged under the agony, almost forming a complete loop. Aoweoag! Hidan screamed, his head in his hands, a broken mess under the crushing weight. Seeing this, Uchiha Ci's face hardened, and he grit his teeth, just a little longer, and when Zero Tail provided enough chakra, he'd be sure to win, but if he let the other guy keep torturing Hidan like this, he might break completely. He took a deep breath. No longer waiting for Zero Tail to finish merging dark chakra, he reached down and slammed his hand against his stomach. A symbol like a serpent eating its tail appeared on his abdomen and swam around his palm, like a forgotten door had been kicked open. The light around them dimmed, and the wind howled in all directions. A cocoon of dark light started to coalesce. Togo Hayato spun around, startled, and then, he saw, a young man radiating raw power ripped through the cocoon of light, standing in the darkness, surrounded by a swirling vortex of dark energy, his scarlet eyes blazing. Immediately, the bloody holes in his waist, stomach, and thighs sealed themselves shut, flesh and blood knitting together, skin growing over the wounds. He was whole again. Togo Hayato's eyes went wide, his twisted smile frozen on his face. What the hell was this? The young man looked up, his eyes burning with cold fire, and let out a wild laugh. What a load of bull about an evil god. That half-baked junk you call immortality is a joke. Watch this. I am the real immortal body. Chapter 86. The stage is set up and the audience appears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Raging chakra pulsed from Uchiha Ci as he locked eyes with Togo Hayato, his Sharingan blazing. A wave of dark energy erupted from him, spreading outwards. The pool of blood churned, the cross groaned, and even the crimson ritual circle surrounding Hidan seemed to waver under the influence of the malevolent chakra. Uchiha Ci was caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The dark chakra amplified the sinister thoughts in his mind, fueling a murderous rage. He nearly gave in to the urge to bust out a Star-Lord dance, flaunting his secret moves for the enemy, but thanks to his gut instincts, he managed to keep it together, driven by extreme malice, but not losing his mind entirely. He had a plan, though it was a barebones one: identify the enemy, gather intel, absorb the dark chakra, then boom. Like Shikamaru, slice and dice the opponent, then bury the pieces. Uchiha Ci was supposed to accumulate enough dark chakra for 5 minutes of his forbidden technique, physical transformation. But by jumping the gun, the transformation was imperfect and wouldn't last 2 minutes. He had 2 minutes to detonate. If he couldn't win in that time, he was done. All he had were 2 minutes of super speed regeneration, and the chakra boost he'd gotten from his double eye-opening stimulation, roughly equivalent to a standard jonin. Without proper study and control, the dark chakra was too volatile to use for ninjutsu directly. It could only serve as a substitute for forbidden techniques and physical transformation. Of course, there was also Hidan, his endangered little brother. Hidan was in death possession mode, so stabbing him was like stabbing all three of them at once. The difference in recovery time between immortality and physical transformation could be used to his advantage, tactically, but looking at Hidan, he'd be down for the count after just a couple of stabs. He had to tread carefully. In less than 3 seconds, his battle plan was finalized. Step 1. Uchiha Ci's eyes turned vicious, his Sharingan spun wildly, and he lunged forward, landing in front of Hidan. His hands flashed through a series of seals, then slammed into the ground. Super Death Battle Barrier. The massive circular cipher expanded rapidly, the light red shield locking down Togo Hayato and separating Uchiha Ci from Hidan in a burst of light. He'd inherited and surpassed Kumogakure's super death battle barrier. The field was set. Outside the castle, a group of 5 landed. Leading them was a tall, stern-faced man in a dark blue gown emblazoned with the Uchiha fan. It was Uchiha Fugaku, leading the search and rescue party for his family members. Fugaku surveyed the ruined castle and the ravaged hall, and took a deep breath. He saw the same Uchiha-style combat and shuriken jutsu marks in the center of the hall as on the walls. Now, he was convinced that the kid he desperately wanted to meet, Uchiha Ci, was here. But, Fugaku frowned at the destruction. The scale of the battle far exceeded anything a genin should be involved in, and the traces of battle he'd seen along the way, from the volcanic ruins, the battered city wall, and the collapsed cliff, to this castle, each one was larger and more intense than the last. He'd dismissed the earlier skirmishes, but now he was shocked. Who was this Uchiha Ci? How strong had he become after this series of increasingly intense battles? Had he unlocked those forbidden eyes? Fugaku suspected he had. How else could he explain the outrageous fact that this kid was still alive after such a crazy escalation in combat? Uchiha Shursui called him the bridge between the clan and the village. Uchiha Setsuna was willing to die for him. Uchiha Saikairo had charged the cult's headquarters, risking everything. What kind of person was he? Captain, the ground's been disturbed. There are chakra traces, and Uchiha reported from behind him. Fugaku whirled around, his 3-tomo Sharingan flaring, and examined the ground. His eyes narrowed, and he quickly formed hand seals, serpent ram monkey boar horse tiger. He aimed his index finger and unleashed a fire-style, fireball jutsu at the ground. The intense heat, far beyond that of a normal fireball, instantly scorched and collapsed the earth, revealing a dark hole. Another Uchiha summoned an orange ninja cat wearing red clothes. It was Nico Hina, an elite ninja under Nico Granny. Hina, smell the brat, Fugaku said, crouching at the entrance of the hole. The ninja cat Hina was taken aback, then frowned, raised its paw, and said angrily, seriously, Fugaku? You think I'm... Before she could finish, Fugaku pulled out his wallet and handed Hina a 10,000 Ryo bill. Ninja Hina, $. Ahem, you treat me as a trustworthy partner, meow. In that case, I'll help you. Hina happily pocketed the cash, raised her nose, and sniffed. A cat's nose, in some ways, is more sensitive than a dog's. After a moment, Ninja Hina nodded. Yep, the brat's scent is down there. But, Fugaku showed no expression and pulled out another 100,000 Ryo bill, and stuffed it into her paw. The ninja cat Hina wrinkled her nose. There's a strong smell of blood down there, and I can hear someone screaming at the kid's location. Sounds like torture. The Uchiha members bristled, their Sharingan blazing. They're torturing an Uchiha kid? Captain, let's kill them. Captain, this is unforgivable. Let's burn this cult to the ground. Captain, if necessary, have Fei Ying send word to Hell Valley. We'll send 100 Uchiha, and rename the Land of Rain. Fugaku nodded to Ninja Hina, then waved his hand. Frowning, he said coldly to his subordinates, calm down. We go down together. No one acts without my orders. He narrowed his eyes and said calmly, that brat is stronger than you think. Maybe even stronger than all of you. The Uchiha exchanged disbelieving glances. They didn't dare to argue outright, but muttered under their breath. Him. The kid who doesn't even know what to do when he visits a brothel. Yeah, right. He can barely handle D-rank missions. Remember Saikairo came back that night and told us what kind of glory that kid wants, that they were willing to sympathize with a kid, but better than them. Not a chance, unless he knocked them flat and poured boiling water on them. Fugaku shook his head at their expressions, then leaped into the hole. Chapter 87. The show begins, and the blades fly across the sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Across the way, the giant snake reared back, uprooting trees and carving out winding ravines. Chunks of gravel shot into the earth like javelins. Orochimaru stood atop the towering Rashomon gate, surveying the chaotic battlefield below. He looked pissed. I actually let him get away. Orochimaru's face darkened, a flicker of rage in his eyes. He glared at a gaping hole in the ground. Orochimaru had come seeking the forbidden technique of physical transformation from Shinnon. His plan was to corner Shinnon in the underground cave, using the terrain to unleash a swarm of snakes and capture him, but for some reason, the guy was acting crazy, never stepping into the trap despite hanging around outside for ages. Reincarnation required Shinnon's superspeed regeneration secret technique. Orochimaru, driven by an almost obsessive desire for immortality, couldn't take it anymore and decided to grab him personally. After a brief fight, Shinnon, only partially controlling the zero-tailed chakra, was no match for Orochimaru. One of the legendary Sannin, realizing he was screwed, he tricked Orochimaru, faking an attack to break through the triple Rashomon gate, then blasting a hole and making a run for it. By the time Orochimaru caught on, Shinnon was a mile away. He even pulled a flying contraption out of nowhere and took off. Now, even Wan Shi's super-sensitive nose couldn't track him. Song Ninja, huh? Orochimaru tamped down the rage bubbling inside, took a deep breath, and calmed himself. After a moment of calm, he frowned. Jiraiya's investigating Iwabikure and Tsunagakure. World War III's about to kick off. The old man will probably stick me in the land of fields or the land of rain. Time's running out. I need to snag that body regeneration technique ASAP. Just then, underneath the Rashomon gate, the massive purple snake craned its head toward Orochimaru and snapped. Orochimaru, where's the 100 human sacrifices you promised? Orochimaru's golden eyes narrowed. He jumped down onto Wan Shi's head and said coolly. Head underground. There are thousands of sacrifices waiting. He narrowed his eyes and licked his lips. Perfect. Let's see what this so-called immortal body can really do. Deep in the cave, a huge, pale red barrier expanded outward. Outside the barrier, rustling footsteps echoed. 5 Uchiha ninjas, led by Uchiha Fugaku, were the first to arrive. They dropped from a hole in the ceiling, inverted, Sharingan eyes peering downward at the scene below. Uchiha Fugaku activated his Sharingan, scanning the entire battlefield. When he saw the barrier and the youth charging the cult leader, his eyes narrowed. This barrier's kinda like Kumogakure's rebirth barrier. Maybe even stronger. Did the cult leader throw it up? Trying to keep us out of the fight? Is that Uchiha Ci? Uchiha Fugaku raised an eyebrow. A barrier like this was a major pain in the ass. Still, a coordinated fire release volley from the Uchiha squad should be enough to burn through it. Before Uchiha Fugaku could give the order, he glanced upward toward a dark corner of the cave. There, a small white snake spat out a scroll. The scroll exploded into a gray-black python. Then, a figure crawled from the snake's mouth. Uchiha Fugaku's pupils shrank, long black hair, golden slit eyes, pale skin, and a Konoha headband. Uchiha Fugaku recognized him instantly as one of the Sannin, Orochimaru. He knew Orochimaru had been sniffing around the cult in the land of rain. Now, seeing Uchiha Ci here, he wondered what role the kid played in Orochimaru's plan. Orochimaru, catching the probing gaze, looked up. The police chief, Uchiha Fugaku. So many Uchiha. What are they up to? Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. This was getting complicated. He'd wanted to grab the cult leader and squeeze him for information on the technique. But now, the Uchiha were here. The Uchiha clan, proud owners of the Sharingan, usually looked down on other bloodline abilities and secret techniques. For a moment, no one moved. Neither side knew the other's intentions. Uchiha Fugaku wanted to see what Uchiha Ci could do. Orochimaru wanted to test this so-called immortal body. So, both sides called a truce, turning their attention to the barrier below, deeper underground. Baiju stared at the sudden crowd, wondering if he should go out. Madara had told him to plant a spore technique on the kid in the barrier, but with all those Sharingan eyes and Orochimaru's snake sense, that if he got too close, they'd see right through his mayfly technique. Baiju was speechless. Madara's secret base had never been so lively. Were these people bored or something? He decided to stay hidden and watch Uchiha Ci for now. The atmosphere was tense. Meanwhile, inside the barrier, Uchiha Ci was oblivious to the VIP audience. He squinted at Togo Hayato, just a few feet away, and let dark chakra surge over his body. with super-fast regeneration as a safety net. He was channeling his inner Danzo. Ditching all hesitation, he stomped forward, he tossed a kunai, then lunged. Togo Hayato, seeing Uchiha's attack, snapped out of his shock. His face hardened, he realized he'd been played. All that chatter with Hidan was just a distraction, buying time and setting up this attack. This kid was a wild card. He had to be taken down. Togo Hayato's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He dodged the kunai, and charged. He pulled a black spear from his sleeve, swung it, and thrust it straight at Uchiha Ci's chest. Uchiha's eyes turned cold. He flipped back, kicking the spear, then, pressing his palms to the ground, he sprang up, flipped in the air, and pointed a finger. The kunai he'd tossed earlier lit up, a thin black line stretching through the air. Like a razor. Uchiha dropped, feet barely touching the ground, and slid forward. Silk thread slice plus water release, water cutting technique, speed, dazzling thread control, and gymnast-level agility, combined into one powerful strike. It was as if Uchiha Ci had a 5-meter sword in his hand. He swung it at Togo Hayato's spear hand. Togo Hayato looked horrified. Even though the evil god cult's immortal body was good at recovery, if his limbs were severed, it would take too long to grow them back. Uchiha Ci was aiming for a critical strike. You think so? I'm not going down that easily. Togo Hayato's face contorted, he pulled out another spear and blocked the thread blade. But that was exactly what Uchiha Ci was counting on. This was a calculated diversion. And then, the murderous intent hidden under the initial attacks, exploded. 6 shurikens landed at Togo Hayato's feet, encircling him. Uchiha flipped, pinched the middle fingers of each hand with his thumbs, and connected his index, ring, and pinky fingers to the top of his head. The threads tied to the shurikens snapped taut, converging on the center. 6 blades of thread flashed. Togo Hayato's eyes widened, fear flickering across his face. The attack was perfectly executed. One more chapter to go. Chapter 88. The water blade takes the lead, and the immortals fight wildly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Shikamaru took down Hidan, he rigged silk threads to detonate the preset explosive tags. He wrapped those tags around Hidan and blew him to smithereens, completing his trap. Uchiha Ci, however, was out of explosive tags. He'd used them all up mowing down enemies on the city wall, but he did have silk threads and was a master at controlling them. He could manipulate those threads from the earth grudge fear technique to stretch taut and slice like a sword, sharp enough to cut someone to pieces, and, as the original story showed, even with immortality, being diced up makes it tough to recover. Uchiha Ci didn't want to waste any time on this guy, so he went for the kill right off the bat. This move completely blindsided Togo Hayato. His so-called immortal body wasn't perfect. Hidan needed to use that blood sacrifice ritual. For a Jonin-level ninja like Togo, his hands were everything. Losing a hand meant no hand signs, no ninjutsu. He'd be a sitting duck. Outside the barrier, the Uchiha watching were stunned. They all had Sharingan, so they saw the deadly intent behind Uchiha Ci's movements, and how tricky the whole thing was. Even Uchiha Fugaku was surprised. He already knew. Uchiha Ci was good with shuriken from the aftermath of the previous battle, but seeing this firsthand, knowing the ins and outs, really got to him. Aside from some basic physical flaws, this kid's shuriken throw and thread control are practically perfect. Only Setsuna Uchiha, the clan elder, has mastered Uchiha-style shuriken jutsu to this degree. Fugaku frowned. Could this kid be the elder's secret grandson, getting support from him on the down low? The more Fugaku thought about it, the more it made sense, and his view of Uchiha Ci started to shift. Back in the arena, Togo Hayato instantly realized that in a straight-up taijutsu fight, some small country ninja like him, even a jonin, was no match for a Sharingan user, and death was coming fast. He used his jet black spear to block all the threads, then, dropping the spear, he immediately formed a hand sign. As the sign completed, Togo Hayato sank into the ground, disappearing. Earth style, earth mausoleum technique. This C-rank ninjutsu turned the ground into liquid, letting him swim through it like it was water. Uchiha Ci's eyes narrowed, the Sharingan seeing a chakra signature moving underground. He slid forward, creating a stream of water to carry him, and grabbed the last kunai on his person, making another hand sign, tiger boar dog. Water style, water fong blade. He clasped his hands, creating a spinning water blade. Uchiha Ci locked onto the guy's position beneath the surface, crouched, and lunged, stabbing into the dirt like a leech. The water blade pierced Togo Hayato's head, ripping through his face and mouth. Togo Hayato's scalp crawled, his eyes wide, twisting his head to let the blade cut his cheek, boom, he exploded out of the ground, blood running down his forehead, staring at Uchiha Ci with a snarl. You little brat, you made me do this, but Uchiha Ci wasn't listening. He pivoted, flying up and slashing at Togo Hayato's neck with his blade. Togo Hayato's eyes flickered, dodging the attack while still making hand signs. Now they were in close quarters, the sword flashing, blue arcs carving cold light, Uchiha pressing the attack, but the other Uchiha watching frowned at his swordplay. One complained. Who taught this kid to fight? He's terrible. With proper Uchiha swordsmanship, that grass ninja would be dead already. Uchiha Fugaku shook his head, commenting. His fundamentals suck. He doesn't even know what he's doing with the sword. Probably just copied some moves after awakening his Sharingan. Swings left and right, kicks people like some street punk. It's a mess. If he doesn't change something. Fugaku frowned. He's in trouble. Back in the fight, Togo Hayato showed his Jonin-level taijutsu skills. While forming seals, he dodged Uchiha's water blades by ducking, jumping, backflipping, and weaving. If he wasn't making those seals, he could have countered with some serious blows, elbows, kicks, the works, but the seals were key to getting some distance between him and Uchiha. That kid's shuriken and thread combo was too dangerous. Soon, the hand sign was complete, water style, water wall. He jumped back, gathering chakra and spitting a torrent of water at Uchiha Ci. Besides defense, this ninjutsu had some serious force. Plop, the water crashed down, slamming Uchiha Ci backwards. Togo Hayato quickly moved on to the next hand sign, adding a lightning strike to the water. A bolt of electricity followed the water, shocking Uchiha Ci. Uchiha Ci frowned, the numbness slowing him down. Togo Hayato's eyes flashed, throwing two black spears with all his might. Thunk. Thunk, one spear hit his chest, the other his leg, pinning Uchiha Ci to the ground. Togo Hayato finally got a breather, staring at Uchiha Ci with a scowl. That should do it, right? But he remembered the kid's healing ability, and felt uneasy. Togo Hayato's eyes went cold, and he made more hand signs, lightning style, 4-pillar bind. The earth around them flipped, and 4 giant pillars rose up, crackling with lightning, blasting towards Uchiha Ci. Finally, Togo Hayato pulled another spear and hurled it at Uchiha Ci's head. Straight for the kill. The 4 Uchiha on the roof gasped, ready to jump in, but Uchiha Fugaku stopped them, frowning. Wait. Uchiha Ci had already shown enough to take seriously, but Fugaku sensed there was more to come. Captain, what are you waiting for? He's about to die, and we're just standing here. The others stared at Uchiha Fugaku, shocked, but he remained silent, his Sharingan eyes blazing. Keep watching. He ordered. In the arena, Uchiha Ci could only take the hits from lightning style, thunderbolt and lightning style, 4-pillar bind. Truth was, he wasn't even trying to dodge, the spear flew right through the middle of Uchiha's forehead, exiting the back of his head. But at the last second, Uchiha Ci opened his eyes, revealing scarlet pupils. He stood up with the spears in his head, chest, and leg, pulling the spear from his head, swinging it to shatter the lightning pillar in front of him. Like a berserker, blood running down his face, he grinned at Togo Hayato. I told you, your fake immortality is a joke. Running around like a scared dog, Uchiha Ci ripped out the other spears. The holes healed instantly, flesh knitting together, skin growing back, no scars left. Uchiha laughed, eyes wild, and charged forward, spear raised. My turn. Chapter 89 Shocking Change, Kusanagi Sword of the Sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uchiha's hands clenched, dark chakra surging within him, he activated the forbidden technique, physical transformation, slamming the brakes on his body's deterioration, forcing a repair, black spears, each over a yard long, pulverized lightning and water pillars as Uchiha yanked them free and flung them with all his might. Then, spotting a gap where Togo Hayato had been, he dove through, dragging his water blade along the ground in a shower of sparks. He slashed upwards, aiming a vicious arc at his opponent. After all the fighting, Uchiha was down to 3 shuriken, a kunai, and some senbon needles, next to useless in this situation. This meant his next throw had to sever Togo Hayato's vital points, otherwise he was done. When the forbidden technique wore off, Togo Hayato narrowed his eyes. He'd been shocked, but he snapped out of it fast. He also noticed that after that crazy regeneration scene, the kid wasn't moving as quick as before. He figured out the kid's immortality was a forbidden technique, a total energy drain. With that kind of insane healing, the kid couldn't keep it up for long. Togo Hayato spun around and booked it, determined to turn the fight into a war of attrition. The sight was almost comical. Here was Togo Hayato, a bishop of the evil god cult, being chased by Uchiha, waving a knife behind him. Seeing the guy wasn't acting like some hotshot jonin, Uchiha started running around the barrier, too, but he couldn't figure out a good way to stop the other guy. He wasn't great at long-range ninjutsu, and he barely had any ninja tools left, so he had to save them for when it counted. Time was ticking away. A wave of anxiety washed over him. Under the influence of the dark chakra, his breathing became rapid, and his eyes turned red. Then, rage ignited in his pupils. Uchiha abruptly dove to the ground, ignoring how his palms sizzled against the bloody patches. He ripped a rock out of the cave floor, crushed it in his hands, and then threw the pieces wildly, yelling, "Stop! Just stop! What are you running for? Quit running! You're a jonin with an immortal body, and you're scared of me, a genin. Come on! Fight me! Fight me until we're both bleeding out." The rocks flew in chaotic arcs, forcing Togo Hayato to dodge and scramble out of the way, but Uchiha's words only made Togo Hayato run faster. In his head, he was fuming. "Genin? You call that a genin? What kind of genin has a throwing arm like that?" And the chakra surge, and the super speed regeneration that puts even the evil god cult's immortality to shame. Togo Hayato had never seen anything like it. This kid was more messed up than any evil god. Just then, the light red barrier around them shimmered. A flash of cold light appeared outside the barrier, suddenly exploding in size. Kusanagi sword, sky cutter. An ancient sword soared into the air. The blade pierced the barrier's weak point and stretched impossibly long, reaching almost 100 yards. It struck at the heart of Uchiha's secret technique that powered the barrier. In one fell swoop, the light red barrier collapsed and shattered, vanishing into nothingness. Then, snap! 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 Rapid footsteps echoed from a dark corner of the cave. Orochimaru was squinting at the fight inside the barrier, or rather, at the evil god cult bishop, Togo Hayato. He couldn't care less about the battle. He just wanted to grab the guy and squeeze him dry to figure out what the immortal body was all about, but the barrier was in his way. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow at it, touching it with a finger. A ripple spread across the light red surface. The regeneration barrier technique of Uchiha village. Orochimaru, who knew everything, instantly recognized the barrier's origin and arched an eyebrow. He knew a dozen ways to break it, but there was a group of Uchiha on the other side of the cave, including that hard-looking police captain, Uchiha Fugaku. The guy gave him a bad feeling, so he swallowed his impatience and silently watched the battle unfold. That's when he saw Uchiha with 3 thick black spears sticking out of his forehead, thighs, and chest, and eyes wide open with Sharingan. Then, the kid pulled the spear out of his forehead like it was nothing and stood up, and the wound was healing fast, like he was rewinding time. "Wait, this is." Orochimaru's pupils went tight, and he gasped as he spoke the technique's name. Forbidden technique, physical transformation. The surprise hit him like a tidal wave, and his heart hammered. Light erupted in his golden eyes. He focused all his attention on Uchiha, running through the possibilities. Is this the kid we ran into on the city wall? Huh. Same messed up chakra vibes as Shinnon, and this technique. Of course. Orochimaru's breath hitched. No wonder Shinnon threw himself into the spotlight back then. This brat's the disciple who took up his mantle, that he had a rough idea of the evil god cult's immortality from the information brought back by his psychic white snake. The recovery speed wasn't anything special, and it only accomplished immortality. He'd come here wanting to squeeze out the evil god cult's secrets and see if he could improve them, but he didn't have high hopes. It was just a little collecting habit. Orochimaru, like Yakushi Kabuto down the road, believed that if he mastered enough forbidden techniques, he could achieve his dream of immortality, but he hadn't expected this kind of surprise. Well. Orochimaru licked his lips, his eyes gleaming, his throat tightened, and he suddenly vomited out his Kusanagi sword, biting the hilt and making hand seals. He flicked his head, the Kusanagi sword flew into the air, growing as it spun, and the tip slammed into the barrier's surface and thrust forward. Forget Uchiha, forget the barrier, forget waiting. Orochimaru had to have the kid now. No need to wait. Chapter 90 Moment of Despair, Heart on Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The barrier shattered, leaving both of them stunned. Uchiha Ci's eyes went wide, staring at the sword that stretched nearly 100 meters in front of him. That's Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword, the one he uses to stab his teacher. Seeing the blade, it hit him. Orochimaru was here. Piecing it together with what he knew from the original story, he realized Orochimaru was here because of him. Back when they first met, Hidan's intended sacrifice was supposed to be Shinnon. He should have been inside the cave with Hidan, only to be ambushed by Orochimaru, who'd been lying in wait. To save his own skin, Shinnon handed over his forbidden technique and bolted, only to get taken out by the protagonist later on. But since Uchiha Ci had snagged Shinnon's physical transformation technique, it had caught Shinnon's eye, so he hadn't bothered following Hidan into the cave. Without the advantage of the terrain, capturing Shinnon in the open wouldn't be easy. After all, the guy was a genius inventor. His air ninja tech was 30 years ahead of its time, with aircraft carriers, fleets, and flying gadgets. In the air, even Orochimaru was helpless, so, without a better forbidden technique to grab, Orochimaru naturally shifted his focus to the evil god cult's immortal body. That's when he saw Ci using the physical transformation technique. Uchiha Ci froze, his breath catching in his throat. He slowly turned his head. Footsteps echoed from the darkness, getting closer. The eagerness, the desire, the obsession, like a pounding drumbeat. A pair of golden snake eyes ignited in the shadows, making him feel like prey, targeted by a cold-blooded python. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled. Then, out of nowhere, thwack. 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 *3 kunai slammed into the ground right in front of Orochimaru's feet. Up on the cave ceiling, 5 pairs of Sharingan eyes flared to life at almost the same moment. Orochimaru stopped dead in his tracks. He tilted his head back, his snake eyes narrowed, gazing dangerously at the ceiling above him. For Uchiha Jonin had Orochimaru surrounded. Uchiha Fugaku stood in front, his Sharingan blazing as he stared at Orochimaru with icy calm. Even facing a Sannin, a legend in the ninja world, the Uchiha wouldn't back down. In the future, Sasuke with the 3 Tomo Sharingan could control snakes easily. Against this group of Uchiha, inheritors of their clan's full power, Orochimaru's snake summons were practically useless. Okay, fine. Orochimaru had plenty of tricks up his sleeve and was confident he could take these 4 Uchiha, but Uchiha Fugaku, one of the clan's top masters, was right there. A real fight? Who knew how that would end? The air hung heavy. Uchiha Ci wasn't sure what was happening, what had made Orochimaru stop his advance, but he knew he didn't have time to waste. He had less than 10 seconds left before the physical transformation wore off. He hesitated for only a split second, then he vaulted over the Kusanagi sword like a high jump bar. Water blade in hand, he lunged at Togo Hayato. Go to hell, you monster! His Sharingan blazed, and water exploded from beneath his feet. Uchiha Ci flew forward, swinging his water blade at the now closed Togo Hayato. The water blade whistled, drawing a long, fierce arc of light. If the strike landed, it would at least take off a hand, stopping his jutsu. Then he'd finish him off with shuriken, shredding him to pieces. But facing the leaping Uchiha, Togo Hayato wore a twisted smile. It was a face of hatred and pain, absolutely insane. Not again. Not again. Not again. This pain of losing everything, this despair of being blindsided. But, this time, I'm calling the shots. Togo Hayato's eyes gleamed with mania as he spat. Now it's your turn to feel the pain. That even as he spoke, a crimson flower bloomed on his chest, right over his heart. Blood sprayed out, splattering Uchiha Ci's face. Then a notification popped up. Special equipment. Earth Grudge Fear's heart has been damaged. Water attribute manipulation skills retained. Uchiha Ci's eyes went wide. He felt strength leaving his body as he crashed to the ground. He looked down. There was a massive, bloody hole in his left chest, right next to his heart, the Earth Grudge Fear heart that should have been beating inside. It was as if it had been blasted by an invisible gun, crushed into fragments. Boom! Ugh! Gah! Uchiha choked, vomiting blood. Blood streamed from his mouth, and from the gaping hole in his chest. Before he could even process the injury, he snapped his head towards Hidan, suddenly understanding. There was only one explanation. When Orochimaru destroyed the barrier, Togo Hayato had seized the opportunity and thrown his spear. It had pierced Hidan's heart, wounding all three of them at once. Now, Hidan knelt nearby, staring blankly up at Uchiha Ci. A black spear jutted from his chest, driven deep into his heart. The three bloody holes in his abdomen, thigh, and heart were gushing blood. His face was deathly pale, barely human. He looked like a vampire who'd had his nose pinched and been forced to drink 3 tons of garlic-infused holy water. Ho, ho. Hidan gasped for air like a drowning man, panting. He stared blankly ahead, his bloodshot eyes wide, letting out a silent scream. Ci. Bro. I'm cold. His body trembled, his face twitched, his lips quivered, his eyes filled with regret, fear, and despair. He stammered, his lips struggling to form the words. Guess I won't see you become an evil god. Hearing those words, Uchiha Ci's pupils shrunk to pinpricks, watching helplessly as Hidan's head drooped. In his own eyes, the dark tomo of his Sharingan spun wildly. In an instant, a surge of murderous intent flooded his mind. The extreme emotion was converted into intense, dark chakra under Shaolingwei's control. Boom. Uchiha stared, silent and numb, his Sharingan wide, his lips, his teeth, even his face were shaking. Then, he slowly turned his head back, staring blankly at Togo Hayato, who wore a sickeningly gleeful expression. He ground his teeth and demanded, his voice shaking with fury. What have you done? What did you do? You bastard! What the hell have you done? Uchiha's eyes turned dark, ferocious, and filled with rage, like a wild animal cornered and ready to tear its way out. The violent chakra churned, raising a cloud of dust and causing the blood pool to ripple wildly. Forbidden technique, physical transformation, full power. In his empty chest cavity, flesh and blood twisted together, forming a brand new heart at an impossible speed. Since it was born, it was bright, incandescent, burning like crazy. This was a heart born to rage with fire. A heart forged for forbidden arts. Now, fire release, chakra mode, release the seal. There's another chapter coming today, it'll be a little later.